I want some sugar, so I'm having you tonight, the Korean Mafia whispered to Folasade. Folasade Adebayo did not come to Seoul for romance. She didn't come for danger either. She came for light, sunrise shots over the Han River, neon reflections on rainy pavements, centuries-old palaces standing proud in a modern city. Her photography fellowship expected one thing: art. Not chaos. Not a mafia boss. And definitely not the kind of man women whispered about in fear and excitement. But chaos had a way of finding people who weren't looking for it. Tonight, she entered Club Nocturne simply to document its interior design. Sleek black walls, cascading glass installations, and a glowing ceiling that looked like a galaxy trapped indoors. The club was closed to the public, but she had permission for an architectural shoot. Her camera clicked rhythmically, capturing angles and ambience. The space was quiet except for the low hum of distant footsteps, managers, bartenders preparing for the night. Everything felt normal. Until it didn't. A sudden shift in energy hit her first, like the air tightened, like someone lowered the room's temperature with their mere presence. Folasade didn't see him enter, but she felt it. The soft chatter around her stopped. Someone gasped quietly. Someone else bowed their head. She turned slowly, her breath catching when she saw him. A man stood in the doorway, framed by soft gold lights. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored suit darker than midnight. Tattoos peeked from beneath his cuff, like they were trying to escape the fabric. His jawline looked carved from stone, and his eyes, cold, sure, focused on nothing, until they found her. The moment Jinwoo Kang's gaze collided with hers, it felt like the universe stalled. Falasade's fingers tightened around her camera. Every instinct told her to look away, but she couldn't. He looked at her the same way a man looks at something dangerous he wants to touch anyway. "Boss," one of his lieutenants whispered urgently. "We didn't know she was here. Should we remove her?" Jinwoo didn't speak right away. He just kept staring at Folasade like he was trying to decode something impossible. Finally, his voice, smooth but razor-edged, filled the room. "She stays." 2 words. Soft. Unquestionable. The men around him exchanged confused looks. Jinwoo Kang didn't allow strangers into his private territory, especially not without clearance. And certainly not beautiful black women with big brown eyes and full lips that seemed to make him forget everyone else existed. Folasade swallowed hard. She didn't know this man at all. But she could feel one thing clearly. He was used to being obeyed. Trying to stay calm, she stepped aside and lifted her camera again. "You don't have to worry," she told one of the managers. "I'm almost done." But her voice shook despite her effort. Jinwoo heard it. He moved toward her, slow, deliberate steps that echoed in her bones. Falasade's heart kicked into overdrive. This was not a man women approached. This was a man people respected or feared. Or both. He stopped just close enough for her to smell the faint scent of cedar and clean smoke on him. "You're not staff," he said quietly. "No. I'm a fellow. A photographer." His eyes lowered to her camera, then returned to her face. "You shouldn't be here alone." "I had an appointment," she said, lifting her chin slightly. His gaze sharpened. "Not with me." "And are you the owner?" she asked. His answer was a slow, deadly smile that made her pulse jump. "Something like that." Everyone in the room stilled. Folasade didn't know who he really was. Not yet. But she could feel it, like a vibration under her skin, that this man wasn't normal, wasn't safe. And she wasn't sure whether she needed to leave, or if it was already too late. Because Jinwoo Kang wasn't just looking at her now. He was watching her, studying her. Like he had just discovered the first sweet thing in a world built on bitterness. Folasade didn't plan to be intimidated today. But Jinwoo Kang standing in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body, had a way of rearranging her plans, her pulse, even her breath. He didn't touch her. He didn't need to. His presence wrapped around her like a dark, invisible hand. Folasade took a cautious step back, clutching her camera to her chest. "I was told the place was empty for today's shoot." "It was," he said, voice low, deliberate. "Until I arrived." She tried to keep her tone steady. "Well, I'll finish quickly and leave." He tilted his head, studying her with a level of intensity that felt almost invasive. "Do you always walk into unknown territories without checking who owns them? It's a club, not a war zone." A slow smirk curved his lips. "In my world, they're the same." Her heart stumbled. Was he joking? Was he serious? But his eyes, dark, unreadable, didn't look like a man who joked. Jinwoo stepped closer, forcing her to tilt her head up to hold his gaze. He was taller up close, broader, more commanding than she realized. "You're trembling," he murmured. "I'm not," she whispered, even though she was. A lot. He saw through it instantly. His gaze dropped to her hands. Her fingers were shaking slightly. Her breath unsteady. "It's good," he said quietly. "It means you're smart. Fear keeps people alive." Something about the way he said it sent chills skating down her spine. "Why are you talking to me like this?" she asked. "Like I've done something wrong?" He leaned in until his breath brushed the shell of her ear. "Because you walked into my territory," he murmured, "and you didn't look away from me." "I wasn't supposed to?" "No one looks at me the way you did." She swallowed hard. "How did I look at you?" He held her stare for a long, charged moment, so long she forgot how to breathe. "Like you weren't afraid," he finally said. Folasade exhaled shakily. Because she hadn't been. She had been curious, drawn, thrown off balance. But now, with him standing so close, the danger felt real. She cleared her throat. "I really should finish my... Don't rush because of me." His voice softened unexpectedly. "I'm not here to frighten you." "Well, you're doing a great job anyway." His lips twitched. "Then let me correct it," he said. He stepped back, not far, just enough to give her room to breathe. The small gesture was so unexpected that her chest loosened. Jinwoo turned slightly, addressing his men without looking away from her. "Everyone out." They froze. "Boss." "I said out." The room cleared fast, leaving only the two of them. The silence that followed was thick, too intimate for a space as vast as the club. "Better?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "Worse." This time he actually smiled, not a smirk, not a warning, but a real, soft, fleeting smile. "I don't get that reaction often," he said. "What reaction?" "You're not trying to run." "I don't run from strangers." "I'm hardly a stranger, Folasade." Her breath caught. "How do you know my name?" He slipped his hands into his pockets. "My men did a quick check. You entered my domain. I had to know who you were." "That's invasive." "That's protection." "Of who?" she whispered. His gaze deepened. "Of you." Her pulse skipped. "Why me?" she whispered again, because it didn't make sense. She was nobody in this city. But Jinwoo stepped closer once more, and this time he didn't stop until he was mere inches away. "Because," he murmured softly, "from the moment you looked at me, I wanted something." Her lips parted, breath trembling. He lowered his voice further, almost a confession. "And I don't like wanting." She shook her head slowly. "No. You don't get to want me." His eyes locked onto hers, dark, hungry, certain. A soft, dangerous smirk formed. "Too late," he whispered. "I already do." The air between them tightened, thickened, ignited. Falasade's heart hammered as she realized. This wasn't the end of something dangerous. This was the beginning. For 2 whole days, Folasade avoided Club Nocturne, avoided downtown Seoul, and avoided anything that could remotely look like a handsome, dangerous Korean man with sharp eyes and a sinful voice. But Jinwoo Kang wasn't the kind of man you avoided. He was the kind of man who found you. Even when you didn't want him to. Even when some secret, reckless part of you did. The hallway encounter. It happened on a quiet evening, the kind of evening where Folasade just wanted to eat, shower, edit her photos, and pretend her life wasn't turning into a Korean Mafia drama. Her hands were full of grocery bags as she walked down the hallway of her apartment building. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead. Then she saw him. Her breath fled her body. Jinwoo Kang was leaning against her apartment door, hands in his pockets, posture relaxed. Too relaxed, like he owned the hallway, the building, the city. Like he had been waiting for her. For a moment she thought she was hallucinating. What are you doing here?" she blurted. He glanced up. That small, controlled gaze, danger wrapped in quiet interest, hit her like a physical force. "You didn't answer my calls," he said calmly. "I didn't give you my number." He shrugged. "It wasn't difficult." She blinked. "You found my number without my permission?" "Of course." His tone was casual, like it was normal. Like he always got what he wanted. The intimate distance. Jinwoo pushed himself off her door and approached with slow, purposeful steps. Falasade's heart hammered so loudly she was sure he could hear it. He relieved her of one of her grocery bags without asking. "You're shaking," he observed. "I am not shaking." "You are," he said quietly, holding her gaze. "And you weren't afraid last time." His voice softened as he lowered the bag to the floor. "So what changed?" Folasade swallowed. "You showed up at my apartment," she whispered. "That's personal." So stop me, he said. Her eyes widened. What? If you don't want me here, Folasade, tell me to go. His tone wasn't threatening. It was gentle, dangerously gentle. And that shook her more than the intimidation ever did. She looked into his eyes and saw something she didn't expect. Curiosity. Control. A hint of vulnerability buried so deep she almost doubted it. She didn't tell him to go. And that was the problem. Inside her apartment. With trembling fingers she unlocked her door. Jinwoo didn't follow. He stood still, waiting. Waiting for something she never expected from him. Her permission. It took her breath away. Do you want tea? She asked softly. No, he murmured. I want your company. The simple sentence made her throat tighten. She nodded once. He entered. But he didn't touch anything. Didn't invade her space. He stood in the center of the living room like a storm trapped politely in a glass bottle, eyes roaming her small apartment with silent interest. This is where you live, he said. Yes. It's quiet. That's the point. He turned back to her. You like quiet? I live in my head, she said softly. Quiet helps. Something softened in Jinwoo's gaze, subtle but unmistakable. I don't get quiet, he said. Not unless I take it by force. Folasade wasn't sure if he was talking about noise, or peace, or his own tormented life. She sat on the couch. Jinwoo walked over, slow, deliberate, and lowered himself beside her, leaving just enough space for the tension to breathe. Why are you here? She finally whispered. He didn't look away. Because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Her chest tightened. And that hasn't happened to me, in a very long time. The unexpected confession. Falasade's voice wavered. Jinwoo, you don't know me. I want to, he said immediately. Why? He took a slow breath, eyes pinned to hers. Because you look at me like I'm human. Her stomach dropped. And most people look at you like, what? She asked. Like I'm a monster. Silence stretched between them, heavy, emotional, intimate. Folasade reached for her teacup, hands trembling slightly. Jinwoo gently covered her hand with his, steadying it. The contact sent a bolt of electricity up her arm. Folasade. She lifted her eyes. I don't want to scare you, he said. His voice was low, rough, honest. But I can't stay away. Her breath hitched. The shift neither of them expected. For a heartbeat, she considered pushing him away, telling him he was dangerous, that she didn't want this. But the truth crawled up her throat before she could swallow it. She didn't want him to leave. And that terrified her more than anything. The room felt smaller. His presence louder. Her pulse faster. She whispered, barely audible. I don't know what this is. Jinwoo's gaze darkened, but not with threat. With something far more dangerous. What? Neither do I, he murmured. But I know exactly how it started. How? His eyes traveled slowly, deliberately, from her lips to her throat to her eyes. The moment you refused to look away from me. Her breath staggered. And I realized, he added softly, that was the first time someone wasn't afraid. This was no longer curiosity. No longer coincidence. No longer harmless. This was the beginning of something neither of them had control over. Something dangerous. Something magnetic. Something they couldn't walk away from. This was the night everything changed. Folasade had never realized silence could feel like pressure. But here in her small apartment, sitting on the couch with Jinwoo Kong beside her, the quiet wasn't peaceful. It was charged. It was warm. It was dangerous. She wasn't sure if she was breathing normally anymore. Every inhale felt too shallow, every exhale too shaky. Jinwoo sat close, close enough that she could feel the heat from his body but not touching her. He wasn't crowding her. He wasn't forcing anything. And somehow that made everything worse. Because if he had been aggressive, she could have dismissed him. Pushed back. Fought it. But this gentleness, this patience, that was the part that scared her. It made him real. Made him human. Made him tempting. The conversation they shouldn't have had. You seem uncomfortable, Jinwoo said quietly. I am, she admitted. Because of me? She hesitated. Yes. He didn't flinch. Didn't take offense. Instead, he looked at her with that unreadable stare again, like she was a rare piece of art he didn't want to damage but desperately wanted to understand. How far does your discomfort go? He asked softly. Do you want me to leave? Her lips parted. The rational part of her screamed say yes. But the words that left her were something else entirely. No. Jinwoo's eyes darkened, slow, warm, aware. Then you're not uncomfortable, he murmured. You're conflicted. Her breath caught. Why do you talk like that? She whispered. Like what? Like you're reading my mind. He leaned slightly closer, voice dropping a full octave. Because you're very easy to read. I am not. You are, he said, his gaze roaming her face. You're careful. You're nervous. But you're curious too. Very curious. I'm not curious about you, she lied. His lips curved, not a smile but something more intimate, like he saw through her even as she tried to hide. You're curious, he repeated, softer. Enough to let me in. She swallowed hard. You asked. I didn't invite. Your door was open, Folasade. His voice was velvet. You let me step inside your space. Your world. It was polite. It was permission. His eyes held hers. And I don't take your permission lightly. A shiver ran through her. Why did his voice feel like it was touching her? A glimpse of his darkness. Folasade shifted, hugging a cushion to her chest for protection. You keep saying things that make me nervous, she whispered. That's not my intention. Then what is? He exhaled slowly, looking away for the first time since entering her home. His jaw tightened, just enough for her to notice. I don't speak about intentions often, he muttered. She tilted her head. Because you don't have them? Because my intentions, he said, eyes flicking back to hers, usually hurt people. That admission landed heavy between them. She didn't know what he meant. Didn't know how literal it was. Didn't know if she should fear him more, or feel sorry for him. Jinwoo, she whispered, what exactly do you do? His gaze hardened. You don't need to know. That's not comforting. I'm not here to comfort you. His voice lowered. I'm here because I didn't want to stay away. Her heart thudded violently. The moment he couldn't fight anymore. The air shifted again, thicker, warmer, more dangerous. Jinwoo leaned closer, slow enough that she could pull away if she wanted. She didn't move. He lifted a hand. Paused. Waited. When she didn't stop him, he touched her jaw with the back of his fingers, soft, deliberate, reverent. Falasade's breathing stilled. His touch was barely there, yet she felt it everywhere. You're sweet, he murmured, voice dropping into a husky whisper. Too sweet for someone like me. Don't say things like that, she breathed shakily. Why? Because, she swallowed, because it sounds like you want me. He leaned in so close she felt his breath against her cheek. I do. Her pulse exploded. You shouldn't, she whispered. I know. His voice was a quiet confession. But wanting doesn't ask permission. The whisper that changed everything. His hand slipped from her jaw to the back of her neck, fingers brushing her skin gently, tenderly. Folasade froze, not in fear but in something more dangerous, anticipation. Jinwoo's forehead touched hers, closing the world down to just their breath, their warmth, their trembling. She whispered, Jinwoo? He exhaled shakily, like he was losing the internal battle he'd been fighting since the moment he saw her. His lips brushed her ear, barely a touch, but enough to shatter something inside her. I want some sugar, he whispered, voice deep, low, sinful. Her breath stalled. He finished slowly, each word brushing against her skin. So I'm having you tonight. Her entire body trembled, fear, desire, disbelief all tangled together. She wasn't sure if she should run or fall forward. Jinwoo pulled back slightly, eyes dark, intense, burning. But only, he added, voice raw, if you want me to. And suddenly the dangerous Mafia boss didn't look dangerous at all. He looked vulnerable, hungry, waiting for her. The way you look at me is going to get you in trouble. Folasade barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Minjae leaning against that black car, the city lights glinting off his jawline, his voice curling around her like smoke as he said he would not touch her. And yet, every look he gave her said the opposite. By the time she entered the Mamba Art Gallery the next morning, her breath smelled like mint tea and anxiety. She had hoped Minjae would forget her, lose interest, or, best-case scenario, vanish. But she walked through the glass doors and froze. He was already there, standing in the middle of the gallery like he owned it. Black shirt, sleeves rolled up, silver rings on his fingers, tattoos hinting beneath the fabric. His men stood discreetly by the walls, blending in like shadows. Minjae turned the moment she stepped inside. A slow turn. A slow smile. As expected, he murmured, taking a step toward her. You came. I work here, she said quickly. I didn't come for you. Minjae chuckled, a deep, low sound that rippled down her spine. Keep telling yourself that, Folasade. She opened her mouth to respond, but her boss suddenly appeared. Ah, Miss Folasade. Mr. John has purchased the entire exhibition. Her stomach dropped. Entire exhibition? She repeated quietly. Minjae watched her face with quiet amusement, clearly enjoying her shock. I like your taste, he said to her, stepping in just close enough to test her boundaries. So I bought everything you recommended yesterday. That was a general suggestion, she whispered. Not an invitation to buy the whole show. Don't worry, he murmured. My finances are comfortable. Her boss laughed nervously and gestured toward the office. Mr. John would like a private tour. Folasade, please attend to him personally. Minjae raised a brow, wordlessly confirming her boss's request before she could protest. So she walked. And he followed. Once they were alone in the quiet east wing, she finally exhaled. You can't just purchase an entire gallery because of one conversation. Minjae tilted his head. I can't. And I did. That's not normal. What about me gave you the impression I live a normal life? Touché. He moved closer, not touching her but letting the space between them thicken like warm honey. Then his voice dropped. You're upset, he murmured. Why? Because you're putting attention on me that I didn't ask for. You don't like attention? He asked softly. Or you don't like my attention? She swallowed hard. And Minjae definitely noticed. His eyes darkened, softening with something like fascination. The way you look at me, he whispered, stepping even closer, is going to get you in trouble, Folasade. I'm not looking at you, she lied. You are, he murmured. Even now. Her breath hitched. Heat climbed the back of her neck. Minjae slid one hand into his pocket but leaned down, his lips brushing the air beside her ear. I told myself I wouldn't touch you, he whispered, voice velvet smooth and dangerous. But you keep testing my patience. Her pulse sprinted. You're imagining things, she whispered. Am I? His gaze traveled down her face, slow and deliberate. To be honest, you're the one making it hard to behave. Folasade stepped back instinctively, but her spine hit the wall behind her. Minjae's eyes flickered, gentle but predatory. He lifted one hand, slowly, giving her time to refuse. She didn't move. But he didn't touch her. He simply placed his palm against the wall beside her head, leaning in while keeping a thin, electric slice of space between them. I can smell your perfume, he murmured. It's distracting. She tried to steady her voice. You're doing this on purpose. He gave a small, sinful smile. I warned you, he whispered. I warned you not to tempt me. And you said you were going to avoid me. I lied. Silence thickened. Her heartbeat grew too loud. His gaze grew too focused. Then Minjae leaned even closer, lips hovering near hers but not touching, just enough to melt her resolve. Tell me to step back, he whispered. If that's what you want. But she couldn't speak. And he smiled, slow, dangerous, victorious. You see, he murmured. You want this too. Falasade's knees almost buckled. Then, the gallery door slammed open. One of Minjae's men rushed in. Boss, there's a situation. Minjae's expression hardened instantly, the air shifting from desire to danger. For now, he murmured, straightening, you're safe from me. But as he walked away, he glanced over his shoulder, eyes burning into hers. Tonight, he said softly, I won't have this much restraint. And Folasade knew. Her life had just crossed the point of no return. If anyone tries to touch you tonight, I'll break their hands. Folasade spent the rest of the afternoon pretending to be calm. She wasn't. Minjae's presence clung to her like smoke. His voice, his nearness, the way he almost kissed her without touching her. Every time she blinked, she saw his eyes hovering inches from her lips, burning with a desire he barely kept under control. And then he left because of some situation. That alone was enough to worry her. No normal job required someone to get pulled away by armed men in suits. By closing time she was exhausted. Her body felt warm and restless, like her blood hadn't decided whether to be scared or thrilled. As she stepped outside into the cool night air, a sleek black car slid to a stop in front of her. The back door opened. Her breath froze. Minjae sat inside. All black. Dark eyes. Expression unreadable. He didn't step out. He didn't greet her. He simply said, "Get in." Her heart slammed. "No," she whispered, taking a step back. "I'm going home." He exhaled through his nose slowly, patiently, like someone trying not to reveal how badly he wanted something. Folasade. Her name rolled off his tongue like a warning wrapped in silk. "I'm not asking twice." Before she could argue, one of his men approached her gently. No harm, miss, the man said softly. Boss needs to talk to you. It's not optional. Not optional. Minjae's world wasn't a place where the word no lived comfortably. Folasade hesitated for one long shaking moment, and then slid into the car. The door closed. Silence pressed in around them. Minjae didn't look at her immediately. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight, hand tapping lightly against his knee. His sleeves were rolled up again, revealing veins and tattoos that made him look powerful, lethal, breathtaking. She swallowed. What happened earlier? Your men said. He cut her off quietly. You're trembling. She blinked. I'm not. Minjae finally turned to face her fully. His gaze traveled from her eyes to her lips, then to her hands, shaking in her lap even though she tried to hide it. He leaned in, speaking low. Don't lie to me. Her breath stuttered. It's been a long day, she whispered. No, he shook his head slowly. You're scared of me. She opened her mouth but nothing came out. Then he moved closer, not touching her but close enough that she felt the heat from his skin. If you were afraid of me, you wouldn't have let me get this close, he murmured. That's why I know it's not fear. His eyes locked onto hers, dark and intense. It's anticipation. Her pulse tripped. Minjae raised his hand, but instead of touching her, he gently pushed a loose curl behind her ear, his fingers not quite brushing her skin. I left the gallery because someone tried to send me a message, he said softly. And when someone sends me a message, they often target the thing I'm thinking about. What does that mean? She breathed. It means, he said, leaning in even closer, that you're not safe walking around alone anymore. Her heartbeat stopped. Why would anyone target me? She whispered. Minjae's jaw clenched, eyes burning. Because I made it obvious, he said quietly, that you've gotten my attention. She stared at him, speechless. Terrified. Thrilled. Confused. Minjae reached over, opened a small compartment, and handed her a tiny gold pin. What is this? A tracker. Her eyes widened. No. You'll keep it, he said firmly. If anything happens, or if you disappear for more than 5 minutes, I'll know. That's insane, Minjae. What's insane, he murmured, is how calm I feel knowing you have it. He looked away for a moment, jaw working in silent frustration. Folasade, he said finally, I've lived a life that gives me enemies. Dangerous ones. And today someone tried to remind me of that. He looked back at her slowly. And they will not come near you. Not while I'm breathing. Her lungs tightened. But he wasn't finished. If anyone tries to touch you tonight. He reached out and lifted her chin with one finger, light, barely there but enough to make her breath catch. I'll break their hands. Her heart punched against her ribs. This man was dangerous. Protective. Unpredictable. And every instinct told her she should run. But instead, she whispered, What happens tonight? His gaze softened only for her. You'll stay where I can see you, he murmured. Where I know you're safe. And then what? She asked, voice trembling. His lips curved into a slow, devastating smile. Then, he whispered, I'll take you home. Her throat tightened. He leaned even closer, breath brushing her cheek. And I'll try, hard, to remember my promise not to touch you. The car slowed. They had arrived somewhere unfamiliar. Minjae opened his door and stepped out first, offering his hand to help her. Folasade stared at it. And she knew. Whether she took it or not. Nothing about tonight would be the same again. I want some sugar, so I'm having you tonight. The place Minjae brought her to wasn't a club, a restaurant, or anything Folasade expected. It was a private rooftop lounge overlooking the entire city, quiet, exclusive, softly lit with warm golden lights. The night breeze carried the smell of jasmine and the low hum of distant traffic. Only Minjae's men were present, stationed around the perimeter like shadows. But the space itself? Beautiful. Too beautiful for the kind of man he claimed to be. Minjae led her across the rooftop, stopping at a table already set with 2 glasses of sparkling citrus water. He pulled out a chair for her, gentle, unexpected, almost out of character. Sit. She hesitated. He raised a brow. Folasade, he said softly, if I wanted to trap you, it wouldn't be on a rooftop with lights and flowers. Her lips twitched despite herself and she sat. Minjae took the seat across from her but didn't touch his drink. He watched her instead, watched her like she was the only thing on the skyline worth looking at. You're quiet, he observed. You brought me to a place I don't understand, she said carefully. And I still don't know why I'm here. His gaze softened, though his posture stayed sharp and dangerous. You're here, Minjae said slowly, because someone tried to send me a warning today. And what does that have to do with me? His answer was immediate. Everything. Her breath caught. Minjae leaned forward, voice low, controlled, deadly calm. I told you not to tempt me, he said. But you did. And now, they've noticed. Who? She whispered. My enemies. People who watch what I do. Who I talk to. Who I look at. He lifted his glass finally, swirling the liquid without drinking it. And today, I looked at you too long. Folasade swallowed. Why? She whispered. He set the glass down slowly. Because you make me forget myself. Her pulse stumbled. He continued, voice barely above a whisper. When I'm around you, I stop paying attention to the room. I stop calculating threats. I stop being cautious. That's the kind of distraction that can get people killed. Her throat tightened. Then maybe you should stay away from me. Minjae exhaled a slow, humorless laugh. I tried, he said. Every day since I met you, I told myself to stay away. His eyes locked onto hers, intense, unblinking, vulnerable in a way she had never seen. And yet, here you are, sitting in front of me, making it impossible. Silence fell between them. Soft, warm, dangerous. He lifted his hand then, reaching across the table, not to grab her, but to rest his fingers near hers. Close enough for heat to spark between them, not close enough to touch. You don't know what you're doing to me, Folasade. She whispered, then tell me. His jaw flexed. He leaned in. And his voice dropped into something dark, slow, and devastating. I want some sugar, he murmured. So I'm having you tonight. The world stopped. Her breath hitched, heat blooming in her chest as his words sank into her skin like ink. But he didn't move closer. He didn't touch her. He waited. Watched. Measured every flicker in her eyes like he needed her permission. Falasade's voice trembled. You said you wouldn't touch me. Minji's eyes softened with something that almost looked like regret. I said I wouldn't, he whispered. Not that I didn't want to. A slow, fragile breath escaped her. What changed? You, he murmured. You kept looking at me like you wanted to know what would happen if I stopped holding myself back. Her heart thudded painfully. You're dangerous, she whispered. He nodded once. Yes. You're intense. Another nod. Very. And you attract trouble. The faintest smirk curved his lips. Constantly. She shook her head. Minjae, this is madness. He leaned even closer, voice brushing her ear like a secret. Everything about you drives me a little mad. Her pulse hammered. He finally touched her. Soft. Careful. A single finger under her chin. Not demanding. Not forceful. Just claiming. Her breath stilled as he lifted her face to his. I'll protect you, he promised quietly. From them, and from myself. Falasade's voice was barely audible. And if I don't want protection? His thumb brushed the corner of her jaw, gentle enough to melt her bones. Then, Minjae whispered, God help me. I'll give you everything you're asking for. Her body reacted before her mind caught up, leaning into the warmth of his touch. He inhaled sharply. That was all he needed. He lowered his forehead to hers, exhaling a shaky breath he'd been holding for too long. Your trouble? He whispered. So are you, she whispered back. His lips hovered over hers. Not touching. But so close. Folasade, he murmured, if I kiss you now, I won't be able to stop. Her fingers curled against the table. Then don't stop, she breathed. Minji's composure shattered. He tilted her chin up. But right as his lips were about to touch hers, gunfire exploded in the distance. Minjae snapped back instantly, eyes cold and sharp as a blade. His men rushed toward them. Boss. They found the rooftop. Minjae stood, fury burning through every line of his body. He grabbed Falasade's hand, firm, urgent, protective. Stay behind me, he ordered. But no arguments. His voice was no longer velvet. It was steel. We're not done, he said, glancing at her for one brief, fierce second. Not even close. He tightened his grip. Tonight was supposed to be ours. He pulled her toward the elevator as footsteps approached. And when this is over. His voice dropped, dangerous and low. I'm coming back for my sugar. The rooftop doors burst open behind them. And their night turned into a war.